What's going on? Real Estate Coffee Talk, episode 8.
9.
8 or 9?
9.
That's 9?
9.
Oh, no
We
kidding.
skipped last week
Yeah, we skipped last week.
due to technical difficulties.
Due to the Easter holiday.
Yeah, we had some banking, you know. We had a lot of time for some banking.
Yeah, no, we had some technical difficulties, and then it happened to be Easter, so it all just worked out, and we just decided to take a week off. But we're back.
Better than ever.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Sorry.
What was the point of this podcast? What are we doing here?
Tell us, Dustin.
Well, it is to educate and give actionable ideas for not only real estate professionals, but future homeowners or current homeowners.
And investors.
And investors.
That's what we're talking about today, right?
Yes, sir.
Real estate investors. Cool. So what sparked this, topic was I've had a couple of people come to me recently who have wanted to get into investing or have had questions, and they want to buy a house and cash it out and fix it, and they want to do all these things, right? But there's a lot of guidelines and rules you have to follow when you do real estate investing. So the whole purpose of this podcast, of this episode, is just to give some clarity on what you can actually do, how you can do it, and when you're able to do it. You know what I mean? I just feel like a lot of people for example, I had a client come to me and they're like, hey, I'm going to buy this house. I'm going to fix it up. Then I want to pull $80,000 out of it. I'm like, you can't do that unless all the repairs you make enough, is worth enough to pull.
Add that much in value.
Right.
And pull it out, right.
Which, we know is probably unlikely. So, okay, cool. So first things first, I want to talk about, what types of because real estate investing is so big, right? There's fix and flips, which we could talk about. There's buy and holds, which you would buy and just hold. There's people who buy, fix, and hold. There's so many different types of things. Something I want to get out of the way is you cannot use an FHA loan with anything investor type. And I feel like a lot of people think, you can just go get an FHA loan. It's only 3.5% down, and I'll just, fix up the property and sell it back or rent it out or whatever.
Right. And even going off of that, what is the buffer period? So you can't even use an FHA loan on a product that's been flipped.
Yeah, it's 90
for
days.
How long?
Flipping rule, 90 days.
90 days.
Yeah.
So if something has been purchased, rehabbed, and put back on the market within 90 days, you can't even use FHA financing on that.
Exactly.
So anything investing-wise, whether you're buying something that's been flipped or you plan to flip something, FHA is not an option that you can use.
But a side note, VA is an option because there is no flipping rule with VA. So it's not all government loans, just FHA. But you certainly cannot buy a house with an FHA loan and just think that you can just fix it, which, first of all, we all know, the house has to be structurally sound, right? Even on a conventional house or a conventional loan or a VA loan, the house has to be structurally sound. You can't buy a house that needs a ton of repairs and just fix it. So that's the first thing I wanted to get away is you can't just use an FHA loan. FHA loans are designed for people who are going to own or occupy the house, and the house needs to be structurally sound.
Yeah, there's a couple other issues that you may run into with FHA. Even if you do get past that 90-day period, if the acquisition price is more than 100% from what that original investor bought it for, you're going to need 2 appraisals, so you potentially have value issues on there as well.
Right.
But, that doesn't mean that you can't utilize FHA as an investment tool. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at 3 to 4 unit properties, as long as you're residing in one unit,
right.
That's, how you would look at it from an investment standpoint. So,
right. Yeah, and then we'll get to this later down the road too, but, something you could do is later down the road, there's nothing in the rules that says you can't turn that property into an investment when you want to move up, right? Or down or, to a house the same size, whatever it may be. You could still use that as an investment property later down the road, just not when you buy it.
Right.
Yeah, you got to be in there for 12 months too. So as long as you reside in there for 12 months, you're fine.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what FHA says. Okay, cool. So, the scenario I want to run by is, I want to buy an investment property. I want to get into real estate investing. I kind of want to walk through what we would ask the client, what are the questions we would ask them, and see if they're in a position where they can start, investing in real estate. I think the first question, and you can even chime in on this, Evan, because they probably come to you before us most of the time. The first question I would ask is what type of investment are you going to make? Are you just buying this house to rent it out? Are you buying this house because you want to fix and flip it? What are you trying to do, right? If you're buying a house straight up as just an investment, you don't plan to live in it. We all know can only use conventional financing, and it's 20 to 25% down depending on how many units. So I know you work with some investors. I mean, what are some questions I think you would ask to an investor when they come to you?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of like what we already said.
Yeah.
I want to figure out
What they're trying to do. Right?
what they're trying to do, but more importantly, I want to figure out if they have financing in place. Because I've had people say, like you said, I've had people come to me with FHA saying, "Hey, I want to buy a property to either flip it or to use it as a rental property
or something."
Yeah,
crazy.
and I'm like, well, unfortunately, with this loan program, like you have to reside, you have to be an owner occupant for 12 months, and that's just not a possibility. So I want to figure out, are they paying conventional financing? Are they using hard money? Are they paying cash? I want to figure all that out ahead of time, just so that we were not excuse me, rushing around at the last second trying to figure out financing problems. So with that, you can kind of have a better idea because, okay, if they have conventional, I mean, we know like conventional might be a little more lenient on their appraisals and things that they flag, but they still, if you're buying a house and it's not in great condition, conventional is still going to flag the issues in those. So that's why if you're buying a flip that's really run down and you plan on putting an extra tens of thousands of dollars into the home to fix it up to bring the value up, that's when you'd say, hey, in situations like this, you're either going to need cash or some sort of hard money.
Financing.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the most important question that I ask is, how do you intend on financing or paying for this property, the repairs, anything of that sort?
Right. So the other thing too is like you need 20 to 25% down to buy an investment property, but I don't want that to deter anybody from thinking they can't build like a solid real estate portfolio. And I know you love to talk about this all the time, Dustin, where you buy your first house, say use conventional or FHA or whatever, we just kind of touched on that, but let's say use conventional, you put 3% down, 5% down, or whatever it is, less than 20%, and you live in it for 6 months and you decide just to buy another house with 5% down again. You can now turn that house into a rental and you can hang on to it, and you can do it over and over and over again up until you get to like 10 properties, right? I mean, at that point, you're probably going to need to either incorporate yourself because it's a business at that point. It's not just, your personal houses. But anything you'd want to add on that?
I mean, well, I'm telling everybody, you're probably not going to get to that 10 properties. Right. So, I mean, like the rule of thumb is, if you're utilizing FHA, I mean, Home Possible, Freddie, Fannie Mae allows you 15% down on their home ready products. Freddie, it's going to be that Home Possible is going to be 5%, but 3% of those funds actually have to come, so they can't be gifted. So that's a big disclaimer. But if you're moving into that multi-unit, you're going to probably move to like a condo or a townhouse, and then you're going to probably position yourself after 12 months to move into a single family home, a smaller one, and then you'll wait in there 12 months, and then you'll position yourself to move into an even larger single family home. Right. And then if you can catch a longer single family home, okay, awesome. But, you still have to show that you're going to reside in that property. Right. And you have to give a good explanation as why is this going to be your primary residence. Right, exactly. Right. Because at the end of the day, investors don't want you trying to, don't want you utilizing primary financing to build up that real estate portfolio. You can, you just have to abide by the rules.
Right. Yeah. Right. As long as you can make a logical explanation as to why you're moving and why this house is now a rental.
So, and the fact that you just brought that up, so a week or two ago, I actually read an article. I don't know if the guy was in Virginia or North Carolina, but he was a real estate agent, and he actually ended up getting caught, him and a few of his business partners. He lost his license because they were using primary financing, and they were purchasing short-term rentals and using it that way.
Mortgage fraud. Have fun.
Yeah, so I think he actually ended up getting some jail time.
It's a great way to do that.
$1 million fine and up to 30 years in prison, yeah.
So, I mean, he was taking advantage. He was literally taking advantage of the primary residence options, and got caught doing short-term rentals, Airbnbs, and
you're killing off first-time home buyers too. Think about it. Like those short-term rentals and those Airbnbs, you're not spending $200,000-$400,000 right off the rip. You're probably going to start on a lower end, a lower spectrum in specific areas that are highly sought out, right? And then you're just killing the first-time home buyers. You're killing the entry-level buyers, especially because the rates are so volatile right now. It's disgusting. Like, it is literally disgusting. Like, you're trying to hack the system. Like grow up. Like, stop that. Yeah. Like, we have enough problems getting homeowners, into houses.
Definitely.
Sorry, passionate.
No, it's okay. So I think the whole point to take away from there, though, is that you don't need to have like a ton of money to become like a real estate investor or start a real estate portfolio. But you also can't have no money, right? You got to have some capital.
And it also depends on the type of investing you want to do.
Right.
Like if you want
I'm talking just like if you want to do like a buy and hold.
If you want to do a
like
buy and hold,
builder.
yeah, it doesn't take. I mean, all you need is
Because we all
Nothing.
know
Nothing. DPA. Get you
well,
in there.
you can
No
use
money
that.
down.
Yeah.
technically, yeah.
Technically, you do need nothing, right?
Right. So I think that's the biggest thing to take away there. You can't just say I want to buy a house and use 3% down if you can't clearly explain or demonstrate why it's not going to be a primary, or it's going to be, am I saying this right? That it's not going to be a primary residence, if I said that right. You need to be able to show that this is where you're going to live and you're not using it as an investment. If you are going to buy it as an investment, that's when you need the 20% down. If you're going to buy a multi-unit, it's 25% down. I think it's as simple as that, right? Okay, cool. So I do know the other thing I want to go into, that's with traditional financing. There are some other options you can explore if you wanted to do that. They'd be called non-qualified mortgages. I know Dustin doesn't like non-qualified, but that's the compliant way to say it. That's what they are. They're non-qualified mortgages that allow you to qualify easier as far as income. They allow you to put less down. So there are those options as well. So just because you don't have 20% down and you want to buy an investment property doesn't mean you're totally out of the race, right? And I think that's important to know too.
Yeah, can we call them like non-traditional, please? I just feel so bad for people. It's like, why do you say qualified? I'm not saying you. I'm just like, why is it qualified? Like, qualified to fit the straight narrow box that hasn't been revised since 2012. All right, fair enough. But yeah, non-traditional. So anybody that's watching, just know that like I don't look at them as non-qualified. I look at them as alternative financing because at the end of the day, if you're self-employed and you don't want to give the government your money interest-free, right, and you have write-offs, like that is your God-given right. That's the American dream right there. So anybody that's watching, there are non-traditional products out there that you can take advantage of. So
I know something even, and this is the one thing I just want to bring up because there's so many, like we all know there's like a million non-QM products, like for investors especially, but we have one that I really, really like. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the way it works is you have to get like I think is it 20% down? I'm talking about the rent schedules where it's 75%.
Investor cash flow product.
Yeah, the investor cash flow where you don't have to have any qualifying income. All you have to do is just prove that the property you're buying can be rented out for 75% of what your payment's going to be, either through a rent schedule or by an appraiser or a lease agreement that's already established, which is like, that's crazy. Like, because normally you would have to qualify for it. And we all know if you already have a primary residence or a primary housing expense, it's difficult to qualify sometimes for an investment property. So I think that's like a really, really good product that a lot of people should know about if they want to get into it and they're having trouble qualifying for traditional financing.
Yeah, I mean, and also too, anybody that's watching this is FHA, okay, conventional. It doesn't matter if you're buying a multi-unit property. You don't even the units don't even need to be rented out. So as long as you can get it, because you're gonna be required to get a rent schedule with these properties, right? So as long whatever the rent schedule comes in at, you can use 75% of that active rent schedule from each unit that you're not occupying to qualify for that mortgage. So you literally can go in there making with no job essentially, and qualify for the property. Get down payment assistance and roll in there. So FHA, that would be the house hack to do. But yeah, no, on the investor cash flow, this is really good. Like if you have a ton of outside debt, right? Or let's say that you have 15, 20 different properties, right? And you don't want those hitting you. Investor cash flow, you don't have to. So you go in there and as long as once again, it meets 75% of your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, you're solid. You're good to go. So that's an awesome alternative.
It's a great tool for somebody who can't qualify. Okay, cool. So I think we covered a lot there. I mean, the moral of the story is do you need money? Yes and no. But you have to be able to, you have to understand that, there's somebody lending you money behind this, right? And I think the big picture is that the person needs to understand what you're going to be doing with their money is going to be smart and it's not going to put them at risk. I think that's the bottom line. I think that's all it comes down to at the end of the day.
I don't think you should be buying them either unless you do have some money because remember, you're taking on a huge investment. It's not only your house, but the entire property and you're responsible. So you should probably have a few thousand, I would say 1% to 2% of whatever your purchase price is, maybe even more on that multi-unit because things are going to happen.
Because at that point you're a landlord too. So
exactly.
Yeah, and if you have multifamily homes, sometimes each unit has its own hot water tank. It has its own furnace. So if you have a 4-unit, I mean, I'm not going to say that it happens every time, but you could have 4 furnaces, 4 air conditioners, 4 hot water tanks. I mean, there's times where
it's expensive.
Mine's alone. I got one and it's expensive.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. You always want to have at least a reserve or an emergency account put aside if you're planning on investing, just because that's the thing. It's a house.
Yep.
You never know when stuff's going to go wrong.
Yep.
It's always when you least expect it, too.
100%.
And if you don't have the money and you're not prepared to pay the cost to fix whatever problem comes up, I mean,
You're in trouble.
You're in trouble, and then the condition of the house could be even worse than it was when the problem first started if it just keeps happening and keeps happening. So,
Good
it's always-
point, though. I love the word preparation. I love it. You said it. Prepared.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, you never know what's going to happen. You got to be prepared, and you got to have, if the lease expires and it takes you a month or 2 months to fill that unit, you got to have enough money where you can, okay, well, you just lost out 1/4 of the income coming in on the property. Okay, well, if that was what took it from covering the mortgage to not covering the mortgage, you're gonna have to have backups, so that way, okay, well, this month maybe I need to come out of my pocket a little bit to meet what my payment is.
How about a pandemic? What happens if you run into a pandemic? The government didn't step in immediately. It took them a little bit of time. You hit that.
There are
you got people who are not paying.
certain areas. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There are certain areas where people just stopped paying rent.
I mean, it's not their fault. They didn't have any jobs.
No, they
You
didn't.
can't
But
blame them either. You know.
And at the same time, the governments would put in the no eviction moratorium, so they weren't paying. You still had a mortgage payment potentially.
Yep.
Your tenants weren't paying.
100%.
Well, you couldn't evict them, so you
Right.
couldn't fill it with somebody who would be willing to pay.
And the damage was already done.
And that went on. That went on for months and months and months. And those people, I mean, huge damages. Huge damages. You buy an investment property to make money.
Right.
And at the end of the day, these people
losing
were losing money because they were the ones paying anything that needed to be done at that point.
Right.
I mean, it sucks, man, but it's like, listen,
It is what it
you got to
is,
pay them. I mean, that's an investor. I mean, he's responsible not only for you, but everybody in there, and he's got a livelihood too. So you can't just expect an investor just to front everything.
Right.
Like, they take that responsibility on, but that was just ridiculous.
Right. No,
Right.
I agree. But I think the bottom line is it's a business, right?
It is a business.
It's a business, and what happens in business sometimes is risk, or you have to
Absolutely.
take on risk for things like that.
And that's what the thing, the landlord, the owner, the investor, they're the one taking on that risk. And the risk is, are you going to pay or are you not going to pay?
Right.
Yep.
And
Definitely.
in that situation, unfortunately, a lot of people couldn't pay.
Right.
Good thing is we're collectively under 155,000 properties, in major default. So we were creeping up to 2.9 million back in 2010, and I want to say during the pandemic they estimated that we were close to 2 million that were serious delinquent. But here's the bottom line: they were throwing in the forbearance properties in there, and once you actually remove that data, the fear mongering foreclosure crash brothers on the news were once again wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're at actually a 23-year low for delinquencies. So
Right.
I'm really happy to hear that in our industry.
No, that's great news for a lot
Well,
of
and
people who are scared. Yeah.
That's another piece of information to say, like, hey, look, this isn't the same as it was
No.
in
No,
2008,
don't get me wrong.
2009.
I can do a whole podcast on that one.
No, I know you could, but I mean that right there. I mean that was a big driving factor in why the market went
100%.
upside down
Yeah.
in 2008, 2009, and it's like not even if you look at the actual raw information, like it's not the same.
No, nothing. Yeah, nothing.
Not even close.
We've literally gained all jobs that we pretty much by next year we should have all jobs that we lost towards COVID. So yeah, and a big portion of that was mortgage delinquencies go up with unemployment. And guess what? You can't fill enough spots right now. They have so many open positions for work. So yeah, I don't see a crash or a bubble coming anytime soon.
So buy houses, right? You should become an investor.
And
Long story short,
we've talked about it too. I mean, and this is even going on the residential side. There's a cost to waiting. And that cost is, like you said, you don't think there's a crash or a bubble popping anytime soon. So that means that I think that the property values are they're not slowing down. And now the rates are up too. So, I mean, there's
Money's literally doubled since the beginning of the year. And when you're talking 18-year price growth and you got wages at 6.5% to 9%, I mean, that says a lot. I mean, your property appreciation, that's where you're making your money. That's your long-term investment right there, your diversified portfolio. But at the end of the day, just know that you can't touch the money, right, until you either sell the property or refinance. So
right.
got to consider that. But
so
it's a hedge against inflation. That's
right.
the bottom line.
And wow, that was rough. And what I was saying was the same property you were looking at last year for $250,000 when rates were in the 3s or 4s. Now it's $280,000 and rates are in the 5s, maybe even the 6s.
Right.
I mean, that's big difference.
I mean, that's only what, but yeah, absolutely. You're talking, and that's less than 18% growth, and that's actually being nice to everybody. That's less than 18%, like 18%.
That's on the low end.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's pockets, and yeah, absolutely. We've seen crazy things recently. So, hopefully the higher rates will cool the market down. I'm team of high rates over here because it's short term.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I think that was really good for anybody who's like wanting to get into investing for buy and hold, and maybe that's a concern, right? I don't want to buy a house right now, even if it's for an investment, because the market's going to crash, right? So that's all great information. The last thing I want to talk about before we get into fix and flips, because that's going to be shorter. We all know, for the most part, what we have to do with those. But the last thing I want to talk about is second homes. Now, second home financing and investment property financing is very different. They're not the same. A second home is literally a second home. So you can't just buy a house down the street and expect to put 10% down utilizing a second home financing. What I'll also see people do is I'll just use a second home loan and go buy a house, in a beachfront property and just rent it out in VRBO. Technically, nobody's going to stop you if you don't say anything, but you're not supposed to do that either. It's a second home. This is where you're supposed to live. It's 14 days out of the year, right, is the rule. So it's not a ton, but that option is available, but it's not an investment loan. And I think that's something to understand, because I know it's just the easiest way to do it, right? If you're going to buy one of those short-term rentals and try to turn it into an Airbnb or a VRBO or whatever it may be, you're like, I'll just buy a second home and just rent it out. But that's not what it's for. But, then again, like I said, nobody's going to stop you from doing what you want with your house if you don't say anything. But I think it's not what it's for, right?
They're trying to make it more difficult too.
Right with the LLPs.
Yeah. Loan, if nobody knows an LLP, it's a loan level price adjustments. Fannie, Freddie basically came out and said, listen, like, we're going to try to deter people from buying second homes so people can actually build generational wealth on the primary side or on the investment side. So they they haven't made them impossible, but it's darn near impossible. Like, the pricing is just absolutely atrocious.
Investment pricing, basically.
Right?
It's
worse, I think.
Really?
I think it's
You
even
might as well
worse.
just buy an investment property.
I mean, at that point, yeah, absolutely. And plus, on top of it, you cover your butt too if you do want to use it as an actual investment.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the bottom line there is, if you're going to buy a short-term rental or something like that, like, don't just get a second home loan because you could put 10% down. It'll be easier. You're better off just saving the money, getting an investment loan, because for one, the LLPAs are going to make the pricing a lot worse, but at least you're covered, right? And you're not going to be running into any trouble using it as an investment if you want to.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So I think we're going to take a quick break there, and then we'll come back, talk a little bit about fix and flips, and then we'll wrap up.
All right, we're back.
Quick break.
Cool.
Oh, man.
You like when I do that, right?
I do. I love it.
All right. So the last thing I want to cover is just the fix and flip thing. And I think I said this in the beginning, but I've had people come to me and they're like, hey, I want to buy this property and I want to fix and flip it, right? But it's not as easy as I'm going to buy it and fix and flip it, right? There's a lot more that goes into it. And I just kind of want to clear the air on that. The only way you can fix and flip a property, I think we established already, is hard money or cash. You need to have one of the two.
Or if the property just needs like barely anything.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking like full rehab.
Okay, yeah.
Like full, like this thing needs to be like
gutted,
like ran over with the bulldozer and rebuilt. Like, I'm talking like a full rehab.
Then,
Because obviously, like, cosmetic stuff, okay, you can squeeze that by traditional financing, but cash or hard money. Obviously, everybody probably doesn't have a couple $100,000 laying around to start fixing and flipping houses. So if you're going to do this and you're going to go hard money, I just want to make everybody aware as to what it entails and what the risks are. We were just talking about this before, but we know it's usually a short-term loan that balloons at the
usually
end.
6, 12, or 18 months is usually the terms of those.
The interest rates are ridiculous.
I think I don't know if you guys have seen any lately, but I was just doing a little bit of reading online, and I've seen a few places where it's anywhere between like 15 and 25% interest.
Yeah, totally believe it. Yeah, I mean, we don't touch anything with hard money, so I have no clue. But
I could be completely wrong, though.
But yeah, the bottom line, it's a very risky loan, right? Because it's personally guaranteed. Even if you get it in a business's name, we all know, unless you have like proven financials inside of your business that show that you can repay the debt, it's always going to be personally guaranteed for the most part. So you're going to be liable. It's going to be interest only. The interest rates are really high, and it's going to balloon, right? So that means if you fix this property up and you list it and you can't sell it, guess what? Bank's coming at you with a giant bill. I know we've had some people who have ran into this situation before. It's not a fun situation to be in. So I think the long story short on this is just, if you're going to do it, you have to make sure you have a plan. You have to make sure you alleviate as much risk as possible and that you're going to be able to do it. You know what I mean?
So, and the nice thing about hard money, though, is a lot of times they will actually finance you some of the costs of repairs as well.
Right. Well, that's the other thing, too. If they won't do that, you've got to have some money to do the repairs, right? Or unless you're going to take out a bunch of Home Depot gift cards. Well, I know Dustin already does that, but, like if you're going to kidding.
I'm a dad.
Yeah.
I'm a homeowner.
I mean, it's not as easy as it sounds.
Right. I mean, that is... The nice thing is it basically acts as cash. It's just other people's cash.
Right.
And a lot of time, I mean, that's what it is. It's private financing through
That's private
equity groups, different things like that. And then a lot of times where they do kind of a good job is they will have you run down, like certain hard money lenders, you'll have to break down, okay, here's what I'm going to purchase it for. Here's the updates that I'm going to do. Here's how much I'm going to spend on the repairs. And here's what the after repair value comps are. And then they'll base it on that. If they don't think it's a safe or a steady loan, like I mean, they're just like any other lender. They'll deny people all day and every day.
Yeah.
If you don't have a proven track record, also they could say, if this is your first flip, we don't want to take that risk because you haven't done it before.
You got to have skin in the game too. You're not going to get that. I mean, what is it? 25% down too. Hard money.
They do. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. You're not getting in there like nothing. You're going to have skin.
Sometimes
in the game.
you're like firstborn kid too.
Possibly. I mean, sometimes. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I know how they're, because like they don't only charge you like 15 to 20% in interest, but I'm pretty sure they take a portion of the profit too.
Yeah, they do.
Like a fairly large portion of the profit.
Yep.
So
sometimes it's 20%.
Yeah. So it's like, even if you have the money, you have the skin in the game, you get approved, you find the right house, it's like, are you really gonna make a ton of money from it?
Well,
Maybe.
that's where like a lot of successful flippers, sure, they use these products when they're starting out.
And then they build up a reserve.
Well, right, yeah. And once they sell it, now they have profit. Then they just start rolling that in over other properties, and it gets to a point where it's, hey, we don't have to use other people's money.
Right.
But when you're getting started off, take advantage of other people's money. Just do it in a smart way. Don't be an idiot.
Just do it.
That's what you're doing anyways.
You're
leveraging their money.
Right. Right, but if you can finance those repairs as well through their own money,
that's the biggest thing.
Because I can find anybody to lend me money on a house. The question is, are they going to give me the extra $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to bring it from
not unless it's
0 to 100?
Not unless it's a primary.
Right.
Yeah. Rehab loans and those things are almost extinct right now. We'll see how fast they come back.
Even with like, non-traditional financing with hard money though, like, are they going to give you the money though? Is I think what you were saying.
Yeah.
Right.
And that biggest thing is just your track record.
Yep.
Like, how do you really prove it to them?
Right.
Well, and that's the thing too. A lot of times they want to see that you have a proven track record.
Right.
How many flips have you done?
Yeah.
How long have you done it? Have you completed it on the timeline that you set forward?
Yep.
Have you sold it within the timeline that you set forward? Exactly. So there's a lot that goes into it, because you got to say, okay, well, we plan on taking 3 months to do renovations, list it, have it sold within the next 2 months after that. So they're like, we only want to have this for 6 months. Okay, well, if you do something wrong and something gets extended and you have you only get a 6 month term, you're creeping up on that 6 months. I mean, you're running out of luck there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to deter anybody from doing it, but I think the internet makes it seem a lot easier and less risky than it actually is. Like, let's be honest. Like, they make it seem like, it's so easy. Just go to hard money, get a loan, find a house, fix it up, resell it. Like,
go buy some tile, some 2x4s.
Yeah, it's a lot more risky, and the financing side is a lot more tricky than you would think.
Right, but I will say it is a good option for some people.
Like I said, I don't want to deter anybody from doing it. I think
just make sure
you have to execute it properly. You have to make sure you have the right hard money lender, if that's what you're going to be doing. You have to make sure you have enough money or a plan B.
If something goes
C,
wrong.
Yeah, D, like a ton of backup plans just in case something were to go wrong, right? Because you're playing with fire.
Right, and with everything else that we talk about, do your own research.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, sure, like you said, on social media, I mean, their job is, they're not selling those products, but at the same time, they are selling themselves and selling them products. So I mean, they're going to make that stuff seem
Yeah.
a lot better, a lot easier.
A
I
lot
mean,
easier.
there's caveats to it. There's little things in there that not everybody talks about, but you just have to make sure you know what you're doing. You have to be careful and
For sure.
make smart decisions
Yep.
with your money, because those can turn around and bite you in the ass
Definitely.
real quickly.
No. Yeah, I think that's the bottom line. Do your own homework, do your research, and just make sure you have a solid plan in place. If you're in a position right now where, financially you just can't, afford your own bills, don't go and try and fix flip property to make some money.
Don't watch Property Brothers on HGTV where you're sitting down during COVID saying, I'm going to be the next man either. Like, if you don't have any experience with any type of work in a house, you probably don't want to get into it, because
Unless you have the money to pay somebody who
Yeah.
has experience.
Well, even at that point, you have to find the right. You have to find the
even
right
that,
contractors.
You have to find the right kind. You have to know like what you're looking for in that contractor. Like, what's their track record? Are they doing well? Are they doing the correct work? I mean, so on and so forth. I mean, it's a scary thing, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, and I don't really think that the money is like the greatest thing in fix and flips either. I think it's more
think
like
it
depends
long-term holds maybe.
It all depends.
I don't know,
feel
because
like
I know a lot of people that have made a lot of really good money.
Yeah.
I mean, it just depends on the market. A lot of these people, a lot of the big players in the Cleveland market that are currently big. I mean, we talked about this in.
Limited though, right? There's not a ton, right?
especially right now too.
So yeah, I mean, I'd say it's there's a decent amount.
Yeah.
There's a decent. I mean, there's a few really big players, but then there's also a lot of little players in
Yeah.
here. But I mean, a lot of the big players, those are the guys that after the market crash, they had money, and they were able to buy the properties, and that's where they made a name for themselves. And sure, they might have been using hard money at that point, but now they're at a point where they're doing so many of them that they don't have to use.
All their own
They go
cash.
in there for cash.
It's all
eat 'em up.
in-house.
Yep.
And even some of them have started doing their own hard money lending, where people come to them.
Right.
And they come to them, and they're the ones being the lenders on some of these deals. So, yeah, I mean, I will say that there is money in it right now. I mean, even these properties you're going to flip, you're going to be paying way more for materials because the supply chain issues are way up.
Right.
So, in my opinion, right now is probably not the best time to do them. But I mean, there is still money in them. I mean, I see. I go look at flips multiple times a week just because those are the houses that they look new. They look flashy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything looks awesome, and those are the ones that the clients their eyes get drawn to. So, I mean, I see them all the time. People are still doing it.
Definitely. No, I think if you have a solid plan, you're in a good position to go ahead and do it. Take the leap, but just make sure you are in a good position and you have a solid plan. I think up front, but it's not as easy as everybody makes it seem. I think that's the bottom line here. So.
Right.
It's easy everybody be doing, and work is not supposed to be easy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, shorter episode today, but I thought it was a really good one to come back with. I know we will be back next week. So thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
buddy.
Have a good week.
Later.
Peace.
Bye.